I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I can't believe I'm in front of one of the members of Evanescence. For real. I mean, I grew up with the music, so this means a lot for me personally, but also for Metal Med TV. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
We're doing good. I'm in Florida, so
How's the
um,
weather there?
beautiful. It's incredible, and
That's
our
great.
state has been open, pretty much for the last 4 5 weeks.
Well,
Um,
that's some good news there.
it is, I think, and it isn't because I don't know that it's the safest thing, but on one hand, on the other hand, I think that for people's mental state, it's
Yeah.
been helpful, but and we have it's a really large elderly population in Florida.
Yeah, I heard about that. So yeah, it's
So,
a bit
but
critical.
but there's been, a lot of vaccinations here. So I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say. I guess because we have really great weather, we're able to spend a lot more time outside,
Yeah.
and it kind of lends itself to being, I guess, a little bit safer. But we'll see.
Let's hope so. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the same thing everywhere. And here in Paris, we're still like having lots of rules and the weather is not fine. So
yeah.
it
Italy,
affects people
yeah,
mentally
Italy's
also.
Italy's locked down again today, as of yesterday.
So the Bitter Truth will come out soon on March 26th. Could you tell me bit more about this album?
It's been interesting to make. We started writing for this record in 2019 and had a few writing sessions over the year, and then got to a point where we're like, okay, we've got enough to start. And the idea was to do, 3 or 4 songs. Well, originally it was actually do 3 songs with Nick Raskulinecz, who did the 2011 self-titled album.
Yes.
And then so we were going to do the 3 songs with Nick in the beginning of 2020, and then we had the tour with Within Temptation in Europe with a date in Paris.
I
That was
was
supposed to,
going to come to the tour. I have my ticket.
yeah. So we were supposed to do that, and then obviously when March came around, that went away. Um, and then nobody knew what to do because no one knew how the disease was spreading, and it was just so many unknowns. Like, how do you even get together to um to facilitate a tour or anything like that? So we just sat and waited it out until they said, okay, we're going to reschedule the tour for September. And then by the end of May, beginning of June, our management figured out that September is not going to happen. So at that point, they moved it to September of 2021. But then it was like, okay, so now we have this space. Let's figure out how to get together to finish the record. And so that's what we did in August. We got back together. We still needed to do some writing. We still, obviously record everything. And we had some songs still left over that we needed to finish. And so, we finished and here we are. But one thing that hasn't changed is that it was always, even before the pandemic, it was always the idea to release one song at a time, like starting in March, and just release 4 or 5 songs leading up to now 2021, and then release the rest of the record. And so that's what we did, and so that hasn't changed. And a lot of people have asked, well, is this why you just released one song at a time? And no, that's not why. The reason that we did that was because very few people release full length albums anymore. And it's a lot to
Yeah.
consume. And, this way it kind of gives you a chance to breathe, and sort of like, why put together a record of 11 or 12 songs that half of them you just had to finish because you had to finish, instead of all of the songs be really good. And that's what this record is. So,
Even within Temptation actually did kind of like this. They released like a single, and then after a couple of months, another single. It
yeah,
was when the tour was postponed. So
yeah.
obviously, but since you had to work during the lockdown on the album or on completing the album, how was it? How hard was this for you to work during lockdown on it?
Honestly, I didn't really. There were a couple of differences, and the only differences were that we how we got to the studio, because we all took tour buses. So a tour bus went and picked Tim up in Sacramento, California, and brought him to Nashville. And then a tour bus picked me and my drum tech JC up here in Orlando, and then we drove up to Atlanta and picked up Troy, and then drove over to Nashville. So that was interesting. And then but while we were in the studio, that didn't seem different to me, because typically how it works when you're in the studio like that is that you're hyper focused, that you're really in the zone. It's just kind of the outside world just is sort of going on, and you're focused on this. So honestly, that part didn't feel any different, until like we had a day off, and it's like, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, can't do anything. So
You were together at some point in the studio, or like you had to work kind of separately online sending?
no, we were all together. Well, everybody but Jen, because Jen couldn't get here from Germany. But Tim, Troy, Amy, and myself, with Nick and our engineer, we were and my drum tech and their guitar tech. So there were 4, 5, 6, there were 7 of us pretty much together. And we kept that bubble, to keep it safe. And, but we were together. I mean, I don't think that we could have done this, not to this degree. We couldn't have done it as well if we were all separate. I mean, because we all wrote together. We were in a room together and we wrote together. So it's a product of that atmosphere.
And you composed the songs Take Over, Feeding the Dark, Yeah, Right. And could you tell me more about these?
That I composed the song?
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I read. You composed these 3?
Well,
I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Right, and Feeding the Dark were 2 songs that were from the writing sessions, or from the record that never came out, that Amy did with the other Will Hunt, because there's 2 Will Hunts. So,
okay.
But that said, Feeding the Dark is different now than it used to be. So that Will Hunt has writing on it, and I have writing on that, because Troy and I basically had the verse in that song. We had that for something else, and that's not how the verse was in their version. And Troy and I played this piece of music for Amy, and we said, hey, we've been working on this. And she was like, oh, that's really cool. And as we kind of got into working on it a little more, she said, wait a second. She's like, I've really wanted to bring this song back that the other Will and I, had written, but it's just not Evanescence. But if we added your verse to this song, it might be perfect. So we basically just took that song and took Troy and I's song and fused the 2 things together. And so that song I do have writing on. Troy and I wrote, that verse, or those verses. And, but Yeah, Right is the other Will Hunt. He and Amy wrote that, and that's from pre-existing record that never came out. Maybe someday that record will come out. Who knows?
That's a fun fact to know there are 2 Will Hunts. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. But Wasted, the video clip of Wasted on You was shot by all the members separately from their iPhones from home.
Yeah.
And well, that's part of like the special things about lockdowns. We've seen like different videos and live streams from each band or members of bands, like filming from home and stuff like that. Like I would love to know, not just about the recording part, but like what was the hardest part about the lockdown for you, like in your life in general, not just about making this record?
Well, probably not too different from everybody else. I think that the hardest part, for me, was just not knowing, can I go to the grocery store? Am I going to get infected? When the first 2 months of the lockdown happened, they didn't know how it was spreading. So, do you go to the store in this Star Wars suit, hazmat outfit, with gloves? I mean, what do you do? So that, and then, initially, I think the first month of the lockdown, we were all kind of like, all right, we'll get through this. It's just like, it's just a super bad flu. but we'll get through it. And then I think 2 months into it, it was just like, wait a second, this is not stopping, And then it was just like, it was that holy shit moment of realization that, wait a minute, what are we going to do? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. The only thing that I've done since I was 17 was play music and tour, and it just stopped, and here we are a year later and it's still stopped. So that's one thing, or a couple things. And then the other thing moving forward is that I was telling a friend of mine this the other day, it's like in my professional career, so let's just go back to 1996 when, I would
Yeah.
call it my first big record release came out. And I was in a band called Stuck Mojo. And this is the only time in my career where I've been this close to a release date of a record. So in March 26th, Bitter Truth comes out. That I haven't been either in rehearsals to start a tour, just to support the record, or B, already on tour supporting the record. And it's this whole thing again of like, I don't know what to do. It's like normally we'd be getting ready to play some shows and promote the record. It's just big release. And then right now, we're just, here we are.
Yeah, especially I can't even imagine how hard this might have been, especially when you work so hard on a record or some music, and then you are waiting, and then boom, something happened unexpectedly, and you just have to wait,
Yeah.
not knowing when. And especially like many fans of Evanescence been waiting for this comeback, and especially the tour with Within Temptation. For me personally, I'm a fan of both bands, and I was like, yeah, I can't wait. This is amazing. And I remember even one time telling a friend, like, I won't believe this is real until I am there. I don't know. I had like this feeling like this is like such an amazing event that I won't believe that it's real until I'm there. And then this happened. And I was like, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the reason I'm asking is like, I know some other, I was watching an interview with one of the members from Korn, Brian Welsh, and he was like saying that how it wasn't really that bothering for him to be in lockdown because he's kind of somebody who's like a private person who doesn't mind being at home, not doing something. So
Yeah.
that's why. But other artists said like that was time for them to be more creative, and yeah.
I mean, I think that, there was some good that came out of it for sure. But I think that we're all to a point where we're ready to get back to, some normalcy, and playing some shows and, doing what we do. So, you just take it as it comes, that's all you can do.
The song Use My Voice is associated with the comic book of Eric Howell, the producer of The Revolution of Cassandra. And the single was released on August 14 in collaboration with Headcount, the organization that promotes for voting. Could you tell us about this collab, like this opportunity, what do you think about this?
Well, that's something that we're really proud of, that to be a part of that campaign. I mean, because, as people have probably seen on the news, how, fucked up things have been in our country politically for a while now.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was kind of a way to get involved and really be a part of the change, and it worked. It's just like now we have a president that's like a real leader, not this egomaniac fucking idiot, that we had in there before. And so we're all very proud of that. And it was something that they asked us to be a part of it, and it was just it literally took 2 seconds to say, yep, we want to be a part of that. So that's something we're really proud of, and it obviously it helped. It made a difference.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was honestly very proud to be a fan of Evanescence when seeing this, because not every band or artist in general want to be involved in like politics, even though this is like just about democracy, encouraging people to vote. But I know some bands which are on the list of my favorite bands, for example, who were just silent about this entire situation. And I knew later that they had like a different opinion from the one we've seen, like they are either pro-Trump or something, and they just choose to not get involved in this entire conversation. But I don't know. I think as artists and bands have a responsibility as well, and they shouldn't just censor themselves to please the fans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is, Evanescence isn't a political band per se,
Sure.
but I think that, that song was written actually not even about politics. Initially, it was
Yeah,
written.
I heard
Yeah,
Amy talking about this in a special event for the promo, and she mentioned how she got inspiration from the like a woman who said that sentence, and but then later it changes the interpretation
it
of the
did.
song.
It was very prophetic, it's like, oh my God, this fits the time that we're in. And by the way, like the headcount.org was not, they're unbiased. Like they want to help everybody vote. So whether you're Republican, pro-Trump, whatever, their whole goal is to try to get everybody registered to vote. And so that was the other thing. It was like, I don't think that we would have been involved with if it was like, we want to get Trump out. And this is the whole reason that we're doing this is, for Joe Biden or the Democrats or whatever. We wouldn't have gotten involved. I mean, because that's not fair. And the whole thing, that's what's just so asinine about, these Republicans talking about an unfair election and all this shit, is that no, we had a fair election, and we, in every way possible, had a fair election. And then even coming down to companies or, organizations like headcount.org, they wanted to make sure that every Republican that they could reach out to and every Democrat and every independent was registered to vote so that they could, use their voice. So I think that that's important to note, that headcount.org, didn't have an agenda other than to get as many people registered to vote.
Yeah, obviously it's about just go and vote, use your voice. I mean, it doesn't matter
Exactly.
which voice, but like you have a voice, you have an opinion, and just go there and say it. And in the end of the day, I mean, it's even music in general. I think like a band that has an opinion is not there to tell the fans go vote for this person or that person. They are simply there to like represent their fans. And I mean, I know I'm even a fan of a band that is like has a specific opinion politically
Yeah.
speaking, and still they have fans from both sides. So yeah, I read about this organization, and I really like it's so important to get involved there. um, so that was an amazing song, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
How important it is to maintain the link with your audience, especially during this situation like lockdown, COVID, and
I think that we've done is, there's a part of the reason of just releasing one song at a time right now has
yeah.
been because it's been 10 years since we put out a full length record. We had, Synthesis, which had 2 new songs on it, but it's been 10 years since a full length record. And so part of like releasing one song at a time is just to kind of let our fans and people in general know, hey, there's something happening here. This band's active and they're doing something, something's coming. And so I think that, and again, that wasn't by design. We were going to do that anyway. So nobody knew that there was going to be a lockdown and no concerts and none of that stuff. So I think that, almost by accident, it's a good thing that we did that, because it was a way for us to stay connected to our fans and for, to give our fans something to listen to and, be hopeful for when there's been so little of it to go around. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that we have done to engage our fan base. And it's awesome. It's a good feeling.
And what about social media? What's your favorite social media, the platform you use or you prefer to use, and what do you think about social media in general?
I hate social media. I hate all of it, but it's a necessary evil in this day and age, and I think that, right now, probably Instagram is my favorite one to, to use, because it's just simple and you can kind of get stuff out there pretty quickly, and it's cool. My daughter really likes TikTok, and she shows me some funny crap on TikTok all the time. So that's
How old is she?
she'll be 20. She'll be 21. Wait, yeah.
Yeah, it's
She'll be 20. Excuse me. She'll be 20 in April.
yeah, that's the average age for the TikTok users.
Yeah, and
See from
she
my
like
surrounding.
it's just funny. It's good stuff, It's like it makes me laugh, and so that's a funny one to kind of surf around on and not take too seriously, because I'm not on it. But that's a pretty funny one.
Okay, yeah, but even TikTok, it has its pro and cons. I mean, but I was talking this morning with a friend about like how we start to notice like how many people start to, even like young and like 2018 and my generation, and they start going online and talking about how they hate social media or they quit in social media. It starts to be like there's a wave of people now leaving social media, including me personally. So it's funny, but I just wanted to know I always am interested to know what people in music think about social media. How do they use it? Because it's
Yeah.
still important kind of to like, you feel like, oh, it's necessity to connect with the fans, and but also it has its negative sides.
Yeah, there's definitely some negative sides. It gives, it's unfortunate. It gives voice to people that really shouldn't have a voice. Um, you know what I mean? And it's just like, there's just a lot of hate spewed on it. And I think that there's a lot of weight that it carries wrongfully sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's, they've done a real good, there's a lot of reporting now, medical psychology reporting now on social media and how it works. And it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty messed up. And,
Sure.
my father's a psychiatrist and my sister's a psychologist. And so we talk about this, and, it's really, there's some positive of it, but I don't know. I think
Yeah,
for me, in my mind, the negative way outweighs the positive. It's
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. Could you tell us about the upcoming tour?
Well, if it happens,
I hope.
yeah, at some point we will tour. So that's the good news. At some point we will get out there and we will, support this record. It's supposed to start in September, back in Europe with Them Temptation, and it's the biggest set / production, stage set that we've ever had. And that's why it's partially such a bummer that we weren't able to get out there in April, because again, we're super excited about this production, and it's yeah, it's so at some point we'll get out there. So I'm going to hold on to that. I just don't know when.
I really cannot wait. I was so sad that when it was postponed, because I really like, I grew up with both bands, and within Temptation, I was able to see them at least in 2018 for the first time. And the stage, the production, everything was amazing. So
Yeah,
them with you guys, I was like, this is a perfect combination, you know?
yeah, it's
And
gonna be a great tour. We're
yeah,
excited.
especially like, will there be, I don't know if I can ask that, but like, will there be like a performance of both bands together for a song or something? Or nothing planned yet?
That kind of stuff usually comes together when you're out on tour, and
Okay.
it's like it's not something that we've discussed. But not to say that it won't happen. I mean, I would think usually stuff like that does happen, but it just happens, or it happens organically.
Yeah, because I think fans would go crazy if Sharon and Emily's go sing together on the same stage.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that something like that will probably happen, but it's not been discussed yet.
Thank you so much for answering the questions. I
My
can't
pleasure.
wait to see you live. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see
Have
you
a nice
soon.
day. See you
Stay
soon.
safe.
Bye.
All right, bye.